Hey everybody, welcome back to History. I want to talk to you about the Civil Rights Movement for a few minutes here. And what I want to do is I want to do a series of very short videos talking about certain important steps in the Civil Rights Movement that were all related to the United States Supreme Court. There's a few court cases I want to talk to you about specifically. The first one I want to talk about, first of all, understand, Civil Rights Movement that we're talking about is after the war, after World War II. All right, but that does not mean there was no civil rights movement before then. In fact, there was. Remember, the NAACP was founded in the 1920s. Ida B. Wells, a muckraker and African-American who wrote the Red Record, was talking about the use of lynching as a way to enforce social order and terrorize African-Americans. The Harlem Renaissance and some of the poetry that came out of the Harlem Renaissance protesting the way that African Americans were treated, but also saying, you know what, we are human beings and we demand to be treated as human beings. But it really wasn't until the late 40s and early 50s that we begin to see some progress on the front of civil rights. One of those important steps of progress was the desegregation of the United States military. The desegregation military was done by executive order. Harry Truman, president from the southern state of Missouri, was convinced, based on the testimonies that he received from frontline generals and from people who were involved in the war, talking about people such as the Tuskegee Airmen, the Fighting 442nd, the Navajo Code Talkers, these other people that we've talked about in class, that based on their performance in war, there was no legitimate, logical reason to segregate our units. That there was no legitimate reason why an African American or Hispanic American or Asian American or any other group other than white people should be denied promotion based on the color of their skin or their ethnicity. So for this reason, he did in fact sign an executive order that did two things. Number one, it immediately desegregated the troops. All right, and you know what, in the military is oftentimes, we think sometimes about the military as being very conservative, very reactive part of our society, but the truth is that sometimes the military is very much out there in the front of things, and this was certainly the case in civil rights. So they desegregate the military, and he comes in and says that promotions shall not be denied based on the ethnicity or race of the soldier, airman, seaman, submariner, whatever group. And because he is the president of the United States, and constitutionally he is the commander-in-chief of all our armed forces, he has the authority to do this without having to go through any other organization, and including the United States Congress or the Senate or the United States Supreme Court. And so this was pretty much something that Truman can do and not be challenged. As a result of this, African Americans are going to begin to find a place in the military. And that's going to be one of the very first organizations that are going to be desegregated in the United States. I'm not going to say it was always pretty. I'm not going to say it was, sunshine and roses and what have you, but I am going to say that it was one of many steps that were taken after the World War II that are going to kind of breathe fresh life into the civil rights movement. Until then, talk to you later.